Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm here today with a special guest, Elliot Snyder from Freelance Duck Hunting. What's up, Elliot?
Oh, I'm honored and glad to be on your podcast. I like what you're doing here.
I'm always glad when you guys can come on. And guys, right off the bat, just to say this, check out him, Elliot's, and Jordan's podcast, Duck Gun Podcast. They do them every week, and they have awesome guests, awesome topics, good things, a lot of stuff you can learn from there. And we basically, kind of a brother podcast. I'm the little brother to the big brother, so it's always an honor to have him and Jordan and anybody from the Flyways Collective on the podcast today. But it's been a little while since we've done any dog stuff on here, unfortunately, and I apologize for that because I know a lot of people really liked listening to the dog stuff. And Elliot, you texted me a couple of weeks ago, whatever, and mentioned it, and I said that is a great idea. I've been wanting to talk dog stuff, and I've seen your stuff that you got going on with your dog, and I just wanted to touch bases and thought it would be a great topic to discuss.
Yeah, well, you are about, let's see, what, Rocky has 2 years under his belt of hunting,
Yeah, this will
right?
be his third season. Yep.
This will be his third season. So you're a couple of years ahead of me, but pretty similar in our training as far as, trying to step up our game and go to the next level. So I had been wanting to just talk to you about, just interesting conversation, just kind of how it went with you and Rocky from, age 0 to where you're at now as Georgie goes through that same phase. And I thought that would just be interesting to record because it's cool content.
Yeah, and it'll be something that kind of look cool to look back on down the road and see what kind of our struggles were, at the moment, and then what they are down the road. Because I kind of feel like there's always going to be something you find out in the field that you didn't hear when you were learning from your instructor or someone that was teaching you. Like for instance, myself, Chris Aiken.
Mm-hmm.
I've called him on the phone, and you're good friends now with Chris Jobman, correct?
Yep, and they're buddies. They're really good friends.
Yeah, and I talked to Chris about that. He's like, "Oh yeah, Chris, it's funny." So it's like a small world. It's crazy. It all comes back around, and we're friends, and it's pretty neat. I would I've never really said this on here, but I would really, really like to go back there. And Chris said I could. I'd really like to just go back there and spend a couple days and watch them train their dogs and just look at their facility. I think it'd be pretty neat. You got a kind of a chance to do that with Chris Jobman, didn't you?
Well, I was up there when I got Georgie, but I've never actually spent time just hanging out there. And I was actually just thinking about that same thing the other day. I would love to go up there and hang out for like a week or something. We had talked about that at some point, me coming up and bringing Georgie and getting some pointers. Chris Jobman has kind of been my mentor through the process, and Chris Aiken has kind of been your mentor through the process. And their training styles, their philosophies are the same. They all have their own little nuances.
Right.
Their philosophies are very, very similar, which I find really interesting. And you training Rocky and me training George. But they have seminars. I know they were going to do a seminar together.
Were they really?
I believe so. I'm pretty sure last year it got canceled by COVID.
Man.
Now, is Chris Aiken is he in Arkansas?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where they were going. But they do. I know that Chris Jama does seminars and stuff, and I would love to. Those type of guys, the more you can talk to them or hang out with them,
man,
it's so much information.
Mm-hmm.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Just little things. Just those little things, and it's just like you in 1 minute they can say, "Oh man, no big deal," because you're kind of like shaky ground film, like, "Oh, what did I screw something up?" And you talk to them for 30 seconds, and they're so encouraging, and they're so just like, "Oh, it's not a big deal," and it just kind of really encourages you and thinks, "Okay, I can get through this." Especially you've already trained Izzy, maybe not like you said to the level that you're going to train Georgie, and you already are training Georgie. But like you do know certain things, and you have more experience than I did. But man, it's been really fun, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I kind of feel like right now, and I'm kind of jumping ahead of the horse, but I want to hear a lot from your training and things that you're going through, and I'll relate when I can, which I'm sure is most of it. But one of the things I want to say right off the bat is I kind of feel like, and I don't mean this like because I feel like I can't teach Rocky anymore. I just feel like I got him to where I want him, because honestly, I ordered the number one DVD. And for you guys who are listening, that a lot of you people have been that listen to the show have been emailing me saying you're getting a new pup. And I just wanted to tell you guys, good luck, and you can do it. Just be patient. But most people are like, I'm just gonna get him to get my ducks and come back, right? And that's really all my deal was, is order DVD one, which is really can get you what you need if you just want that. But then after I did, I was like, man, this is a blast. Like, I actually really enjoyed training him, and it's really fun to see it at work in the field. So then I moved on and started doing more things, like advanced training, is what Chris calls it. And so right now, I said all to say this, I pretty much feel like I'm at the point where I'm done. There ain't really much. I know there's a couple more things that I could do with them, and I always want to get them better. But I feel like I'm really happy. Once I got the hand signals down, I feel like it's going to really be dialed in this year, like even better than last. I feel like I'm pretty happy. Besides scenarios, like hunting in the ice. I would love to get him in more ice to get him acclimated to that and getting used to that, but I don't know how feasible that is, especially with all the issues with flying. But I want to hear, Elliot, maybe let's backtrack, not to exactly where you are at this moment, but let's go back a little bit and talk about some of the things, maybe struggles and victories that you had in training Georgie. In like,
Sure.
let's say, like, where would you like to start? Because I mean, there's so many things we can start with.
Quick background: the Georgie is my third retriever. The
Okay.
first one I did not try to train at all. I was just on a whim. I got this half lab, half golden retriever out of the paper, and it happened to have crazy desire to hunt, but I didn't train it at all. And it was a mess to hunt with, but it was a great little retriever. Just I didn't do any training, so she did whatever she wanted to. Then I got Izzy, and my goal with Izzy was be steady and bring everything back to me, and that was it. And so I trained her to that level, and I just didn't do anything. And I trained Izzy with, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the book Water Dog, which I've learned from multiple people that's kind of outdated compared to like how Chris Aiken and Chris Jobman trained. But that's the book I used, and it was successful to what I wanted her to do. She was very easy to hunt with. She was steady. She was well behaved in the blind. But that's all I tried for her. Now, Izzy was, I bought her for about $350. So she was bred to be a hunting dog, and she had some really good bloodlines, but it was diluted. So it was, all of the really certified, well-achieved dogs in her bloodline were, 2-3 dogs removed. So she didn't have near the ability that Georgie has. So when I got Georgie, I decided, you know what, I'm going to be really serious about this, and I'm just going to see where I can get her. I'm going to follow a system, which I followed. Chris Jobman said you needed to either get Chris Aiken's DVDs or, the retrievertrainer.com, which is Freddie King, and he's kind of in that same network. In fact, I believe that Freddie King filmed the DVDs that Chris Aiken put out, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, they're all on the same, philosophy and everything. So I followed that system, and I mean, I've gotten Georgie farther now than what I would have expected to get to. I didn't know how quickly I would get to hand signals, and I have not gotten her through water tee. I have not even done any water tees. I stalled out in land tee because I made some mistakes, and that can kind of go into a struggle that I had. I made a bad mistake with land tee. I got overly confident with her progression. And do you want to, I don't know how, should we explain what land tee is?
Yeah, just explain it for a second so everybody knows that hasn't maybe made to that point yet.
Okay, so when you're trying to teach hand signals, or what they call casting to your dogs, there's a progression that you're supposed to go through. So the first thing that you do right after force fetch, which force fetch was an interesting process for me as well. It took almost 2 months.
Yeah,
we can talk about that later on if you want to as well. But
for sure,
once you get them through force fetch, you do force to pile, which is you put a pile of bumpers down at about 50 yards, and you just you say fetch, and then you nick them, and then as they move farther, you say fetch and nick them again, and it just forces them to go out to the pile and come back. and you do that for 5 or 6 sessions until your dog is perfect on that, and that's the beginning of teaching blinds. And so after that, you will put a pile of bumpers over to the right, and then a pile of bumpers back into the left. And so there's a progression you go through. And basically, without being too specific, I just started skipping steps. So she had forced the pile down really well. And so I went into the land tee. But
what step did you skip, Elliot?
Well, once I got into land tee, I did that a few days, and she was doing great, and I got overconfident. So then what I started doing was I kind of started setting up obstacle courses. I basically just didn't listen to Freddie's videos anymore. And I just I want to do this because this would be fun. So I would set up an obstacle course around my yard where I knew where one bumper was. So I would send her out, set her down, and then hand signal that direction. She did that, and she got every one. But what the problem is that she's somewhere along the line, she lost the idea that I've got to go straight and continue to go completely straight until I'm told. So for one, she started, I think it's called, they call it popping, where she would not know it was and sit down before I whistled her. But the main thing is she just wasn't taking a straight line. She would kind of guess where she thought the bumper was. She might, instead of going straight, she might go off to the left. I could always whistle set her and hand direct her to it, and she found every single one, but she wasn't going straight like I needed her to.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'm like, okay, I'd made this decision like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm like, we're getting pretty close to season. I'm going to go back to force to pile, and I'm just going to do force to pile at longer distances and just do that a bunch. And the first time I went back to force to pile, I would put like 5 or 6 bumpers out there. She would go for the first 4, and then on the 5th one, she would veer off and go off in a different direction. So she wasn't even perfect on force to pile anymore, because she was so used to like where I'd been putting bumpers and stuff. She started kind of guessing and not trusting what I'm telling her to do. It became less of a team game for her and more like, well, I think it's over here, and if I'm not sure, I'll just sit down and look at it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I'm just backing way up, because my plan was to get clear through water tee and then stop there before season. But once I realized that she wasn't taking a straight line as far as I needed her to, I'm like, I'm just going to back up and kind of just rest there. And I've gone back to the full tee now. But the way that Freddie King teaches it, that I never got to, is you've got your back pile at about 80 yards, or maybe it was 100 yards. And then you've got a right and a left at about 75, and then you've got a right and a left at about 35.
Oh, okay. He does a little extra then. That's actually a good idea. I mean, that's a good. I don't know if I would do that for me. I don't know if I would have did that at first, because Chris teaches Aiken teaches it just the 3, because which obviously represents a T, right? But that does actually sound like something fun for me to do now with Rocky, since he's more advanced. To add in a little bit, instead of him expecting to stop in this one spot, which would be considered the pitcher's mound, is kind of how Chris describes it. I could even stretch that out and make a whole nother spot for him to break, cast him left or right. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and the problem with that drill is I live in the country and I got 5 acres, but a lot of it's woods, and I don't have the space to do that full drill. So I've got to go to different places, but I haven't built back to that, so I'm just making sure. Now, when we go out and hunting, I will give her hand signals, because I mean, anytime I whistle, she sits, she looks, she'll turn to the right, turn to the left.
Yeah.
But and then off season, my goal will be to really firm her up on all of that, and then I haven't even looked beyond that, what the next step is in the training, in the progression, but I'll get to that. But I don't think I'll mess with it during hunting season.
I don't know. I'm curious of what Freddie King's is, but I know I'm pretty sure. Now, don't quote me, because not doing it from the get-go now, I'm like, man, it's slowly starting to leave me. Like, people ask steps and processes. I'm already been out of it long enough to now. It only takes a couple years, and I'm already like, man, what was the step before that step? Now I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure for Aiken's way, after you do the water, because you go from field tees, or land tees to water tees,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go back to the I forgot what he calls it, but basically you'll set bumpers up way out there, like blind retrieve. It's basically blind retrieves, and you'll set
Mm-hmm.
them up there way out there, 100 plus 200 yards, and the goal is getting them to run in a straight line directly where you sending them, and get them to run and find that blind retrieve, and then they don't even know where it's at. And that's very challenging. That was the last thing I did with Rocky before season started last year, because I had already did the water tees, which after land tees, to me, water tees was easy, except for the part, what they call, and I don't know if you remember this in the videos, or if Freddie mentions this, but it's getting them to float. Did they talk about that? So, like, say if
I
you're
don't
doing a
remember.
water tee, you got bumpers to the left, bumpers to the right, and one straight out. And then say I send him to the one straight ahead, and I say back. He jumps in the water, swims. I whistle. He turns around. Now he's in water, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
He's supposed to turn around and swim in place, so to speak. They almost call it floating, where he is almost not even paddling. He's just kind of floating.
Mm-hmm.
But Chris, I had called Chris about that. I said, man, he keeps wanting to swim at me, which I figured was going to be a problem, because now he's in the water, so he feels like he has to keep moving. So
Mm-hmm.
when you whistle and he turns around to look at you, they'll have a tendency, and I don't know what Georgie will do, but Rocky, and I've heard other dogs have a tendency to either, when they turn around to look at you, only look at you for a split second or two, because they're swimming, and they're not panicked because they don't mind the water, but they're like, I got to stay moving. So they're either going to swim right back to you, or they're going to look at you and then kind of guess what you want and do it without you telling them. And that was
Yeah.
actually really interesting. And Rocky, Chris talks about making them float for like 8 to 10 seconds before you send them, to train them. They've got to stay looking at you till you send them, because, like, say if you're in the timber where it's a little bit darker, or that you're all in camo and they can't see you as good, it takes them a couple seconds to verify where you're at, because when they turn around the water, okay, give them a second or two to find, okay, there's my boss, there he is. Now
Mm-hmm.
which way does he want me to go? And then you got to send him. So it's going to take 4 or 5 seconds for that whole transaction to take place. And I think the longest I ever had Rocky float was about 5 seconds, and he wouldn't move, but I didn't really push it farther than that. Maybe I should have,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's interesting. It's
Yeah,
fun. It's challenging.
it is. It's a lot more fun than what I expected it.
Same
I
here.
expected it to be. I
Mhm.
mean, I thought, I've never really been like, when I trained Izzy, I never really considered it fun and looked forward to it. But I just didn't. I had such basic goals with her,
Yeah.
and I don't know, with Georgie. Maybe it's because she comes from, one of the best kennels in America,
Yeah.
from one of the best trainers in America, and I'm posting stuff about it on YouTube, and I mean, she's such a fast,
Oh
dynamic
my
little
goodness.
dog,
Yeah.
and maybe part of that is just, maybe it's partly my pride. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know, but I've really enjoyed it a lot more than I expected.
Well, she's a lightning bolt, and and I don't. Let me ask you this, just for future reference, because I know for a fact 100% when I buy my next dog, I'm definitely buying it from Chris Aiken's kennel. We had talked about it, and to me, the
Mhm.
pricing was very fair, especially coming from the bloodlines they're coming from. But I told him, and he agreed, and I was like, okay, cool. He feels the same way. He goes, you want a dog that is 100% firecracker out the gate for duck hunting, totally amped up, but under control. But you
Mhm.
also want a dog that's going to lay on the couch with you and relax. And I said, you nailed it. I said, Rocky is way too on the side of mellow, and it's fine, because it is. I think it was good for me to have the first dog I trained to be that way, because if I would have had an amped up one, I probably would have really lost my temper with, because it's very
yeah.
easy to get frustrated. Not always, but there was some things like force fetch that I got really frustrated with, and I just had to walk away. And I feel like I was pretty disciplined in it, because I'm kind of a person that I can get impatient with certain things. But I feel like I did really good, only because I knew what was coming, because I was warned in videos and by Chris. But having his temperament is just so, it's really laid back, and you can see it in the videos. He'll run out there pretty hard, but he's such a big, thick, barrel-chested dog that she's not designed like Georgie is, to have that speed and efficiency and just go get him, and I want that in the next dog, but I also want them to be able to relax. I'm curious, how's Georgie? Can she tame way down when it's time to not train anymore? I mean, I know she's
Oh,
still
yeah.
young, so
No, she's been the easiest puppy that I've had. In fact,
really,
Chris Jobman talks about it. You want your dog to have a switch
yes,
to where they can turn off and there's things that you do through the training process, and I'm pretty sure that Chris was talking to me about it. Things that you do to help them learn how to turn it on and off. But as far as a house dog, she has been for the amount of energy that she has and the athleticism and the drive, she is super chill
that's
in the
awesome.
house.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just
That's
hit
a
a home
good
run with
bloodline
this
right
dog.
there.
Yeah, it is. Well, her dad is probably the most, well, Chris Jama said, the fastest, most athletic dog he's ever had in his kennel.
Wow.
So, and that's not even the number one dog in his kennel. His number one dog is a dog called Jet, who's already in the Hall of Fame. And yeah, and you mentioned the pricing. And I don't know whether it's appropriate to say what the price is, but I feel like that they could sell them for a lot more. Knowing what some of the other kennels sell, especially the British dogs, which are kind of a fad thing, knowing what they're selling those for. And I mean, these guys are, if you go and you look at the AKC and the, what's the other division? AKC and the HRC, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, what was the other one? Now I can't believe.
Well, if you go and look and see who's putting dogs in those championships, it's the people that are following the training system of Chris Aiken, Chris Jobman. It's that pressure and pressure release training system. Those are the guys that are putting dogs into the Hall of Fame. Those are the guys that are showing up en masse to the championships with their dogs. Mm-hmm. And for everything they're doing, I feel like the dogs are underpriced.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Do you think it's inappropriate? Because I feel like it's public information for Aiken. I guess I could say what his dogs run for. He said it's no secret. I mean, okay. So non-trained, untrained, where you're doing it yourself, you're just picking up the puppy. He was telling me $1,500 to $2,500. I don't know if what Jobman's is, but I mean,
I was like, a little bit cheaper. Georgie was $1,250, and I know I've got a friend that just got a pup out of Jet's litter, and Jet's already mastered. He's in the Hall of Fame, and that was a $1,500 dog. Or no, maybe it was $1,800 dog. But,
yeah, and to me, okay, maybe 3 years ago, I would have thought, nah, I ain't paying that much, whatever. I wouldn't even bat an eye anymore because what that comes with, like what you got. And what Chris Aiken and Jobman, all them, Freddie King, those bloodlines is huge. Like, he was telling me, he goes, Titus, those dogs will do things and without even training because it's in their blood. He goes, you can't even train the things they do. Like, for instance, bringing 2 ducks back at one time. You can't train a dog to do that. I mean, I'm not saying that's necessary. I don't expect Rocky to bring 2 back or whatever. But it's just certain things that they're so smart and they love it so much. It's almost like they're not human. You know what I mean? Or it's almost like they're not a dog. They're almost human. It's weird. And I can see it,
They have been bred generation after generation after generation for the exact qualities that we want as hunters.
Yeah.
And if you're picking up a dog like I did for Izzy for $350, you might get a really good one. You might get a really bad one. Yeah. But it's diluted bloodlines. It's selection, and they're selecting the traits and qualities that we want as hunters, and they're breeding it, year after year after year after year after year. And so when you get one of these high-powered dogs, that's what you're getting. You're getting a basketball reference. You're getting Michael Jordan's son.
Right.
Right. I mean, if you want an NBA kid, you want Michael Jordan's son or do you want Titus's son?
Exactly.
It's really, you may be both good at basketball in your own respects, but one played, I don't know if you played high school basketball or not. I guess I use myself. I played high school. And so I might have a kid that's decent at basketball, but Michael Jordan's kid, and that's really, it's as simple as that. It's really as simple as that.
It is. And it's no offense to any, like I said, I got Rocky from my dad, and he actually had a couple good little, because he's AKC, and he has got a couple champion sires in the bloodline, not far back, like only 2 back. In fact, one of his I think it's his grandpa or great grandpa was in Ducks Unlimited, which doesn't mean you're a good duck dog, but supposedly that dog was a stud too. But so, I mean, he has good stuff in there. And I think that's fortunately that for me, that worked out really good. My dad, spent some time getting the mom from a good kennel and then bred her with Rocky's dad with a good, and so it's good and everything. And it's no offense to that. I love Rocky. Like I'd lose it honestly if something happened to Rocky, before his time. And so I don't mean it like that. I don't want to say like I have no heart for him. He's an incredible dog, and I'm he's my buddy. You know what I mean? But for next time, learning, I know what I can fine tune things a little bit more and get a little bit more out of what you want. But
yeah, and I feel the same way about Izzy. I mean, she was the perfect dog for me at the perfect time. My first dog was horrible to hunt with. She wasn't steady. She had more desire. I mean, her desire was crazy. And she was just a complete pain in the ass to hunt with. And what I needed as my second dog was Izzy. So just chill, low desire, but easy to hunt with, do all the basics, and I love her to death. But there's something really, really cool about having a dog that's bred to this level. It's something very, very special. We had Chris Jobman on our podcast, and he was telling a story about how when he first got into training, and he had I can't remember what kind of dog. Anyway, he was going to the trials and just watching, and he was seeing all these high-powered dogs, and he's like, "Man, I want one of those dogs." I mean, he could tell the difference.
Oh, I remember listening to that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and my wife makes fun of me because I talk about it so much because it made me feel so good. And he's like, "Elliot, you got one of those dogs," and there's a sense of pride about that.
Yeah.
And it's just very, very special and very cool. And then to see them, like you said, they have this inset. Everything was, for my level of training, everything seemed so easy to Georgie. It's like she'd learn things just so quickly. And I'm thinking during the whole process, I'm like, I know that I'm not doing well. I know that I'm making lots of mistakes. I have to be. But she's just getting it. She's just getting it. And I did make mistakes along the way, but she just picked everything up quick. Well, I did go slow, though. I say quick. I mean, she's 15 months old, and I still haven't got to water tea. So I went really, really slow. But I felt like that the only reason that it was going slow was me, not her. I felt like she was picking things up just super fast.
All right, so let's get into force fetch. How was that for you, and explain that process that you went through?
Yeah, well, I started it late. And so I started it when she's at about a year. And I think ideally, from my understanding, about 8 months is, if they're ready, that's about the perfect time to do it. But I was moving nice and slow, taking my time. I knew I had a year and a half, so there was no rush, which I was really happy about.
Yeah.
The way it's set up. I got her in July. And so she was too young, in my opinion, and from the consultation that I've gotten from everyone, that was too young to hunt her the first year. So I had lots of time. And so I didn't start with force fetch until about a year. And we had Chris Jobman on the podcast, and he did a whole hour on force fetch. And man, it was so helpful. So there was 3 stages. The way I tried to do it was in 3 stages. The first stage was just getting her to hold. And then the second stage was adding the ear pinch with the bumper and get her to fetch it, starting off just up close and then moving clear onto the ground, and then adding in the e-collar with the ear pinch and the e-collar. So there was 3 steps to it. And because I didn't start her until she was a year, she developed some bad mouthing problems on her retrieves where she just wanted to, I wouldn't call it a hard mouth, but when she brings back a dummy, she's just squeezing it in her mouth, just squeezing it.
Okay.
And then she'll sit and heel, and she's still squeezing it. And so that caused me a huge, huge problem. But when I first started just with the hold, man, she just didn't want to do it. I mean, she didn't want to hold it. And when she held it, she just wanted to constantly gnaw on it and squeeze it and squeeze it. I probably did five weeks on just hold, where it was just sticking in her mouth, and then no ear pinch at that point. It's just getting them to hold it.
Right.
And then, you get to the point, and I thought I was done. after a few weeks. And so I sent a little video to Chris, and I was like, what do you think? I think I'm done. He's like, have you tried walking around her and see if she, because she was sitting and she was holding it. And she's like, try walking around her and try healing her. And I tried that, and she just completely fell apart. I mean, and so he said, yep, I knew it, you're not done. So I went another like 2 or 3 weeks, to the point where she would sit and hold it. She would walk it heal with me. I could circle around her, and to where she would just hold it. But she still did some minor chewing. I wanted her to sit there, hold it like a little statue, right?
Right.
And so he told me, he's like, well, because you started at 1, she has formed this habit of that kind of gnawing on it, and so you just move on. He said that's going to be. I don't think I have the skill level to break it, basically, and it's really just more annoying than anything else. And it's, she still does it, and I'm sure that you'll see that she'll do it. Now, she didn't do it with the pigeons as much, but then I moved on to the ear pinch, and where I was just saying fetch it and trying to get her to do that. And the problem I had here is this dog loves bumpers. Like, I mean, I cannot tell you how much she loves bumpers. So it was difficult for me, because I mean, I couldn't hardly ear pinch, because anytime I said fetch it, I mean, bam, she was on it, like, you know, I mean, like she had, like it was water, and was just getting out of the desert. So my understanding is, if you have that problem, you have to get to the point where they don't want to do it, and then you're still forcing them to do it. And that was my whole problem. I couldn't get her to not want to do it, because the thing that happens is, if everything you're doing they want to do, then you get out in the field and all of a sudden they don't want to do it,
right?
Then they're not going to do it. You have to get them to the point where they don't want to do it, and you're forcing them to it. But I only found a couple of scenarios where she didn't want. For some reason, when I went to a 3-inch diameter bumper, right when I went to that, she didn't want to pick it up, because we had always worked with the 2-inch diameter bumpers, and I threw out a 3-inch diameter just by luck. And because it was different, she was just kind of like, no, this is not what I do. I go after these 2-inch bumpers. And so I had about a 2-day period where she was refusing to fetch that 3-inch bumper. And that's when I really got in most of my work with the ear pinch and forcing her to do it. But the whole ear pinching and bringing in the collar to the ear pinching, that was like a week and a half. I mean, she went through that with flying colors really, really quickly. So, but the whole process was like somewhere between, might have been 8 weeks. I mean, it was a long time.
I agree. I feel like I spent 4 to 6, possibly 8 weeks on that. I might have did it in 6. Not that it really matters on it, just how much time. Because I started after 2 weeks of it, doing it 3 or 4 times a week. I realized, wait a minute, this is not going to work. Like, I have to do this like 3 times a day, because I had watched one of his videos, and he talked about do it for 5 minutes 3 times a day. Because that's what I tell people on the videos, like, you only need 10, 15 minutes, because I felt the same way. You need all this time. You just got to spend hours out there with this dog. It's not true. You can train a fully trained, ready, 100% dog with 10 minutes to 15 minutes a day. I know that people don't have a hard time believing that, but you can. And so I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do, because it was getting frustrating. So what I started out with was a leather glove, and would stick it in his mouth, and you got to make sure you clear the lips, because obviously if they're biting down on their lip, they're not going to want to do it. So I'd put the glove in their mouth, and my thumb would grab the bottom of his chin or jaw, and I would hold it in there, kind of force it in there, pull his top lips up with my right hand, pull them out, so make sure they're not stuck in there, clamp down and say, hold. And while I'm doing that, he's kind of jerking back, like trying to, what are you doing? You're gagging me, you're choking me, whatever. And you're petting him, saying hold, and make him do it for 3, 4, 5 seconds, and then say leave or release or whatever word you use. I use leave just because that's what Chris said. But I take it out, stick it back in, and do that for 5 straight minutes, and then stop. Go inside, come back a couple hours later, we do the same thing, and did that for like a week. And before long, you just put it in there, he'd hold it. No problem. He's not, like you said, he's not chewing, super soft mouth, but he's holding it, and just leave it. And then we moved into the ear pinch, and if people are listening thinking, you're pinching your dog's ear, what are you doing? You're being mean to your dog. No, it's not like that. It's a pressure. That's all it is. It's not hurting the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just putting pressure on the ear. And like you said, that would be challenging having a dog that wants it, because at that point, I felt like Rocky didn't want the bumper. So yeah, that was a struggle, but it might have made it easier on the back end. I didn't think about it making, if they wanted it, it'd make it harder on the other side. I see what you're saying. But he pinched the ear, and he'd kind of squirm and yelp a little bit, and I wouldn't be even pinching hard at all. And finally, he'd go down. Once the dog registers that that's what they're supposed to do, then no matter where you stuck it, I always did it in the back of my truck where he was up like head level with me. Mm-hmm. And he would just finally, he's boom, boom, boom. Wherever I'd stick it, he'd pick it up. So yeah, it was just, he would like to drop it a lot, or he'd hold it like a cigar in his mouth. And that would drive me nuts. Like that would make me
Georgia
so mad.
Too. Me
and
too.
I asked Chris, I go, Chris, does that matter? Like, maybe it doesn't matter, but that drives me nuts. He just started laughing. He's not like, no, as long as they're holding it. They won't do that when they're holding a duck or something. And I said, okay, well, it just don't look right. So it would drive me nuts. It'd just be hanging there. It looked lazy to me, is what it looked like.
Yeah. Well, you want your dog to look like, you want him perfect. You want him to sit there like a little statue and hold it. And Georgia did the same thing. I'd let go and she'd gnaw on the bumper, flip it around in her mouth. The next thing you know, she's barely holding it like a cigar. And I'm like, just like that. Just drives you crazy. But I did the same thing I was doing too. And well, luckily for me, the bulk of my training when the pandemic happened and I was working at home, I had all day.
Oh, nice.
For months and months and months. I was 6 months. I just went back to work. So I was 6 months without working. So I could do 2 or 3 a days. Mm-hmm. And I did 3 a days during that process too, which made a big difference. Yeah. But you're right about the 15 minutes. I was told do not go over 15 minutes, mm-hmm. especially with something like force edge. Like you set a timer, you make sure that you're not going past this certain thing. So yeah, if people think it's a really time consuming, it's not. I mean, even if you do 4 or 5 days a week, you can even skip a couple. And I try not to. But if you need to, you can. And you're talking 15 minutes a day, once, twice a day. It's no big deal, and it's bonding, and it's fun. The problem is people that live in town have a disadvantage because I've got plenty of space.
See, I live in town, but I've grown up in the country, so it's not my favorite. Definitely not my choice where I'd rather live. I'd rather live in the country, but I got a high school right next to us, and they just have so much open grass field, so it actually looks like a training ground. And no one's ever out there, so I literally could walk there in 2 minutes, so it's really nice. But yeah, they would, just the lazy hold and just stuff like that, which I guess didn't matter as long as they were holding it. It just irked me, But he would do that, and so I think I might have struggled with him for a week, maybe probably wasting time just trying to get him to hold it perfect because that would just bug me so bad. Mm-hmm. But then I moved into the e-collar, and you're giving them a nick, like on a low level, fetch it up. And then they're like, whoa. At first they're like, what's going on? Why am I feeling this in my neck? Why are you doing this? And then like you said, with the ear pinch and you're doing it together, so they don't really notice the nick. And I'm not telling you this, I'm telling people that are listening, but sure. They're, you're doing it at the same time because they're used to the ear pinch now, but then they're nicking them, and then you stop ear pinching and just nicking it, and then it's boom. And then, like you said, this might have not been exactly what you meant, but then we moved to the ground finally, and we would just do heel, and he would walk with it, and he would fetch it up. I'd throw it right there, and we'd be standing there, and he'd be sitting in heel position, and I'd say, fetch it up, and he'd grab it, and he'd hold it and sit back down and hold, mm-hmm. and then I'd say heel, and we would walk around, and he'd walk around with that bumper in his mouth. He really did good in that, walked around, and then I would, after we did that for a couple days, a week, whatever, then I would put bumpers in a row, like 5, about 15 feet apart, and then he'd be heeling, walking, boom, fetch it up, and he'd boom, grab it, take it out of his mouth, and keep going. So it's so funny to see the process, and it's funny to hear you say, and I'm not giving you a hard time at all for it, but the natural instinct is so much of us as humans to want to. Once we start getting things rolling with the training of a dog, your natural instinct is just to want to start doing it yourself, and you think you got it figured out. And mm-hmm. then when you miss a step, then you got to backtrack, because there were some things I did that with. I missed a step. And I didn't do it purposely. I just must have skipped over it in the video. And I'm like, why is he not getting this? And then I watched the video again. I'm like, crud, I missed this whole piece. Went back, retrained him through that. And I was like, well, there you go. It just proves that you have to follow the building blocks.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely accurate. And it's easy to get overconfident when your dog's doing well and start kind of like, I've had to have a couple times where mentally I've had some ridiculous thought. I'm like, dude, you're a total amateur. You don't know what you're doing. Don't sit here and think that you're some great trainer. You're not at all,
You're following a system.
Yeah, you're following a system, and you've got a hybrid dog, and you get lots of help, and you have to text people to help you, and that's fine. It's part of the process.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's easy when you're feeling like your dog's doing so great to think that
you're doing, you're a good dog.
You can step outside of it, think you're better than you are.
And I feel like, I don't know. There's no number like, okay, you've trained 3 dogs, you've trained 4 dogs. I'm never going to call myself a dog trainer. But obviously, after the 3rd dog to where you're doing it right and you're doing it good and you're doing it and you've had good dogs, I would say, okay, yeah, I'm comfortable with training a really, really good dog. But I'm still going to go back to the videos and I'm going to take my notes and make sure I don't miss anything. Because like I was telling you, by the time I train another dog, even though I trained Rocky to be what he is and I know how to fix things, I can't remember the exact steps. I have to go back and watch the videos and take and look at my old notes again,
Yeah, so I think it would be with guidance, I'm capable of training a dog to where people would say, wow, that's a well-trained dog.
Yeah.
At least, now, if I send videos of what my dog is doing to a professional, they think it's sloppy because it's just they're at a whole different level. But your average Joe hunter will see Rocky or will see Georgie and be like, wow, that's a really well-trained dog,
I can only imagine how pumped you are to see her out in the field. I can't even comprehend it. Especially for the fact that you had to wait through a whole kind of a season. I mean, she was still a pup, but you're like, okay, I have this pup, but I can't do nothing until next year. So I can only imagine your excitement.
I'm really, really excited. And I'm trying to just tell myself, okay, I've seen dogs on their first hunt. And Izzy's first hunt, actually, she was fantastic. But I've seen dogs on their first hunt that just don't do what you think they're going to do. And so I'm like, okay, she's steady. I've done this in my mind. I'm hoping that she's just amazing. But the fact is she's never been out there with the one thing difference that you can't simulate is your excitement. Yeah. And dogs read body language. They know tone of voice. And I cannot simulate the kind of excitement that I'm going to have on a hunt out training. And that goes right into the dog. And she may not be steady. She may, who knows what she's going to do. But I tell you, that first hunt, my gun's going to be down. I'm going to make the whole video basically is going to be centered around her, where the GoPro is actually going to be facing her, not the birds. And so my gun's going to be down and I'm going to have other shooters. And so the whole thing's going to be okay, making sure if she screws up, it's going to be learning experiences. I'm not going to lose my head about the hunt and make sure that I'm, doing what I need to do to not let her have bad habits right off the start. Yeah. But I'm cautiously optimistic this should be awesome.
That's good though. I mean, at least you're thinking that, that way. I didn't take my gun on the first hunt either. And I'm glad I didn't because you just can't. And that's just being kind of selfish, I think. Yeah. In some ways, I mean, yeah, we're passionate about hunting. We love hunting. But like you said, if I don't bring a good dog in the field, no one's going to want to hunt with me. I'm going to be frustrated. The dog's going to be confused and frustrated. You're not going to have any fun. Like, there's not going to be fun. So I cannot wait to watch that video. So you're taking her dove hunting first?
No. I'm going into Nebraska for the first time and hunting the Nebraska teal opener.
Oh, you said September 5th. I thought you said August 5th.
No, September 5th. So okay. I'm not going to do any dove hunting.
Yeah,
this year.
I don't know. If I do, I'm not taking Rocky. I last year I took him. I said, you know what? At least out here, and I've talked to Chris about it, and he didn't think there was, you're a bad person for that. And I mean, I love hunting with him. I love taking him, but it's so stinking hot on our dove opener, and it's not worth it to me. I think, I'm not 100% sure, and Chris thinks it too. I might have overheated Rocky one time, I don't know exactly when it was. I don't know if it was training or hunting. But when the dog, this would be a tip for people listening with your dog. Okay, so when a dog pants, their tongue is out, right? And it moves forward and back. And it's usually flat when they're panting. When they are like to the point of really getting timped out, is the end will curl all the way around completely and make a complete circle. And he said when it starts doing that, you're at the max. You got to get your dog. Even it doesn't matter if you have water or not. At that point, they're pretty much done. And I feel like Rocky gets that way super easy now. I mean, we do have, like today it's 110. So I can't I can't train him. I can't even go out there at 6 in the morning. It's already 85 degrees. It's going to get hot so fast. He's obviously in a black dog on top of it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it stinks because my wife's like, why don't you go out there and do something with me? I go, Sarah, I can't. Besides doing water stuff, which I do, I'll even do in our pool and stuff. They dogs actually, believe it or not, can get overheated in water too because their skin cannot breathe when it's submerged, and that's how a dog sweats, I guess, so to speak, is through their skin like we do. But when it's underwater, I've heard other dog trainers so they can't sweat. So they could, if they're doing long water retrieves, that could be really bad for them. If they're doing 100 yards, 150 yard water retrieves, it could be really bad supposedly, but. So I just really try to stay really low. And then when it gets down into the 90s in the daytime, I'll go out there like 6 in the morning and we'll do water treat. If it's in the 70s in the morning and we'll do our training. But it's just so tough in the summer. And so dove hunting is the same. Like you're out there, it's smoking hot. And I don't feel like dove hunting is worth it. I don't really feel like, oh man, I'm getting all this training out of it to be worth it,
Well, and doves are very feathery birds, and a lot of dogs hate that. Mm-hmm. And I know that I got some pigeons for Georgie. I don't know if you saw those videos, but I could tell that she did well with them. But even with pigeons, there's just so many feathers in their mouths, and you can just tell that they. Yeah, and I don't want that to be for her first experience.
Yeah, no,
I really don't.
I don't blame you one bit. And I know people are gonna be like, "Why aren't you taking Rocky this year?" It's like, dude, you know what? It's not worth it to me. I got him for a duck dog, and it is fun. Watch him retrieve doves. He does good at that too, but it's like, it's just not worth it. It's just him getting heat exhausted and messed up like that. It's just not worth it. When we
hunt, do you guys have a wet heat out there? Is it humid or is it a dry heat? Out of curiosity?
I would say it's pretty dry, although I say that, and then we go to places like Montana, and it's just like I'm getting bloody noses and chapped lips, and I never get that. So I feel like it's not as humid as it is where you guys are at. But it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's completely dry like, Montana or somewhere like that, because it's a lot more dry there. But it's pretty dry, man. I bet you were only like at 30% humidity or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, 110 is 110.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
I don't think we've had any hundreds this summer, thankfully. We've been in mid-90s a lot, but we haven't had any triple digits that I know.
We did good all up until about 10 days ago, and it's been the forecast for 3 weeks it was 111 yesterday. It was 115 on Saturday. It's been insane. In fact, they're doing rolling blackouts with our power company because they said they don't have enough power to keep up with the grid with how much everybody's running their their air conditioner and all that stuff. So anyways, a little bit more of a
your state is falling apart, man.
Dude,
your state is falling apart.
I'm looking at it. Trust me when I say this, we've already made plans. I mean, it's not a secret. I thought, should I say this publicly? But I mean, we've already been looking at multiple states. I've been a lot of places. I've been, a lot of good places that I would love to move, and I like their politics, and I like their gun laws, and I like just their everything. So trust me, I can tell you right now, and I don't mean to get political, but if they require here, if any state's going to do it, it's New York and California. If they require vaccines and make it mandatory, we're out of here. Because people are like, oh, if they do that, they're going to make it federal. And I go, I don't believe that. There's too many states that will fight that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but
if they do it, they're going to do it there. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And if they do, we're out of here. And I've looked at.
What are your top 3 states? What are your top 3 states that you're thinking about?
You're just going to think I'm saying this, but
I'm hoping that Kansas is on that list.
It is. It actually is. Idaho is. I really want Idaho, honestly, just because I've grown up with mountains really close to me my whole life, and I love the mountains. But The problem with Idaho is I love it, but there's too many Californians moving there. Yeah. And they've jacked the prices up so high. I've been looking at real estate for a couple months. We're going to fly there next month probably and just look around in a lot of literally 500 population towns. And we're looking at literally where there's nobody. Mm-hmm. But the pricing has just went up so much. So I'm like, you know what? I told my wife, I said, you know what? I could go to Kansas or Oklahoma or somewhere in that little Midwestern spot somewhere right there and probably do so much better. Do you guys have state tax?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or bad, not state, like sales tax? Sales tax?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, our politics are good in Kansas. Mm-hmm. They're solid. I've got no problem with it.
What about, so you're telling me that my truck registration wouldn't be $700 a year?
No.
No. Can you believe that? Is that bizarre or what?
Yeah. I mean, you pay a couple $100 for registration.
Yeah. Well,
something like that, depending on how nice your vehicle is. I mean, I've paid under $100 for crappy vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what's so nice now though is just there's so many good things about it. I'm not trying to be mushy. Jordan was giving me a hard time the other day, like showing a tear. And I said, no, for reals, man. It really is important. You're a blessed person if you have good people in your lives and you have good friends. I mean, there's nothing like it. And there's things about certain what's the word I'm looking for? Like social media things that can be really negative, but there's so many positives too, like YouTube. I mean, who would have thought that we would be doing what we're doing now with the Flyways Collective and being friends and talking on the phone and calling each other and just joking, laughing, doing videos together. It's like now it's opened up so many more doors. So if I need to get out and move out of the state, I have good friends now in these other places that I can. It's just cool. I think it's really awesome.
It is.
It's a blessing. It is.
It is. It
really is. But man, you know what? Let's do this very soon again, Elliot. I'm running out of time. Let's do this again because we didn't even touch into. And I know there's a lot of people that would like to hear about e-collar. They would like to hear more about land tees because we really didn't go into details about it. Let's do this again and maybe do a part 2 and 3 even of it because I feel like this is an ongoing thing. And there was a lot of things I wanted to say about experiences I learned last year working with Rocky hunting that I know to do better this year. So can you tell?
Sounds good, man. Would love it.
Can you tell everybody where they can find you at?
Well, it's Freelance Duck Hunting on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. That's and message me any of those places if you want to reach out. I don't know about you. I love it when people contact me and be like, "Hey, I've been watching your stuff." And I spend a lot of time going back and forth with people because it's a topic I love talking about, and I love it when people reach out. So feel free to contact me. Yeah.
And then check out their podcast, the Duck Gun Podcast. So go over there.
I knew I was forgetting something.
Yeah.
In fact, you mentioned e-collar. We've got a whole hour over there on e-collar from Chris Jobman.
Oh, yeah.
People want to get in on that. We've got a whole hour on that over there.
Yep. Guys, go over there. Check that stuff out. If you want to hear some more dog train that you haven't heard on this podcast. And if you're newer to the podcast, the MVM Show, go back. We're on almost getting close to 80 episodes now, which is crazy to think of, but go back, way back, and you can see a lot of stuff. Chris Aiken has been on twice on our podcast, and we've done some other dog stuff. So go check it out if you're interested in that. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.